Thanks for staying with us. The African National Congress's National Executive Committee has heard several proposals on how to manage coalition governments, identified as one of the issues to deal with at the party's national conference. Unstable coalitions have been top of mind for the party. Let's speak now to someone who knows the subject well and has even written about it. That's Mapungubwe Institute for Strategic Reflection Director of Research, Professor Booysen. Prof, always a pleasure to speak to you. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for your time. The ANC at the weekend, through David Makura, saying we are not discussing who we are going to be in coalition with in 2024, but we are working for a clear victory, and we are looking at the data right now as well as the by-elections. Your thoughts on this?
Yes, it is indeed. It's politically a very strategic game. It's important for any political party not to cede the knowledge outright that is actually unlikely to get a majority, an outright majority. The ANC may still be in with a slight chance to get an outright majority in next year's elections, but one doesn't do that outright in the start of a campaign. So it's very important for the ANC, as we heard in the announcements and the briefings that Dave Makura, on behalf of the ANC on coalitions, did yesterday, to hear them say, yes, they're running for outright majority, they're running to resuscitate the trust that the voters have in ANC. ANC knows very well that it is easier for it to win back the voters who have been staying away from the polls, abstaining, boycotting, than to bring in voters that support other political parties. And those kind of voters definitely want to know that they're not going to vote for a political party that cannot win an outright majority. So that's a very tactical game. And the ANC also emphasized in this process of briefing that they're focusing their attention on the local government coalitions, the instability and destructiveness that is prevailing there, and not next year's election. And of course, that contrasts with the proposals that we saw the DA make about 2 weeks ago, in which they're going for changes at all levels of government. But ANC did come up with a wide range of proposals at this stage. And indeed, it will be a long road to get those proposals translated, even just some of them into legislation.
Especially when you look at, the fact that they're looking at proposing things like limiting the number of motions of no confidence that can be brought within a particular period, and also the proposal looking at the highest number, the party that got the highest number of votes leading the executive, for example. Let's stay just for now with this issue of limiting the number of motions of no confidence that we've seen in councils. How much of this can help with bringing stability?
Yes, indeed. That could help a lot with instability, to limit the number of motions of no confidence. And the ANC and DA have been agreeing on that aspect of controlling coalitions, and to not totally rule it out, because parties do insist that it is their democratic right. That's part of accountability, to bring those motions of no confidence, but to limit it per period, and not to have the runaway, the roller coaster that we have currently in local governments, especially in the metros, that there are motions of no confidence around every corner. And political parties will always find a reason when they critique their opposition, and to say that those parties have not been governing, that they have not been fulfilling their obligations, not been delivering services, they're not enhanced transformation. And those are actually the ground on which many of these motions of no confidence could potentially be stopped. But I think political parties will still be able to find so many reasons to bring those exact motions of no confidence. It's really as if coalitions, motions of no confidence in those councils have become a roller coaster, runaway car, and ANC as a kind of angry bear trying to catch that car.
And especially when you look at what, we've seen in Gauteng, one just really wonders if we're going to wake up to a new mayor every second day, because even now we see that this current mayor is not even safe and something may happen, expecting the ANC to give a briefing this evening. But Prof, there's another one that I'm very interested in, and I just mentioned it. And this is this proposal that the party that received the highest number of votes be the ones that leads the executive. Do you see this one being accepted, given how challenging the situation has been?
It is quite a widespread practice in coalition politics internationally as well, that the biggest party be given the chance, at least the first option, as they call it, to put together a coalition government. And if that party then fails, the baton is passed to smaller parties. But it is going to be difficult for the ANC to get general acceptance of this one, because they have forfeited so much of their legitimacy, their right to speak on this issue, when they themselves have been one of the main perpetrators, if not the main perpetrator, of instability and disruptions in local governments. And all the opposition parties know that their efforts to build alternative majorities, where the ANC has fallen short of those outright majorities, that will be forfeited in that process. And this is about the ANC trying to bring in legislation or regulations at local government level, which will really benefit the ANC itself. Because in the bulk of the coalition councils at local level, the ANC is still the party with the highest number of votes. So political parties, opposition parties, I believe it will definitely be countering that one and pointing out that the ANC, in the name of trying to stabilize those local government coalitions, is actually being able to benefit itself. But that said, the ANC, if it is the biggest party, it does have the biggest chance to put together a coalition. I don't actually think it needs legislation to do that, because it has been trying to build those coalitions anyway, and in many cases, it has got the outright majority, gets the outright majority with the help of few small parties, because it is the biggest party by far. And it really doesn't need legislative reforms to be able to do that.
And Prof, very briefly, before I let you go, just moving away slightly from this issue of coalitions. This afternoon, the president saying that, of course, closing that ANC-NEC meeting, talking for the collective, saying that it would be wrong for the SACP to contest the elections alone. I mean, we've seen the SACP talking about going at it alone for quite some time, and then there's now the talk of a reconfiguration of the alliance. We don't even know still right now what that would look like. It continues to speak about the difficult state that the alliance continues to find itself in right now.
Yes, it has been a long-term story that the ANC tripartite alliance with SSB and COSATU has fallen into bad times. SSCP on a few occasions, as far back as 1998, first started occasional talk, not very convincing talk so far, but occasional talk of going it alone, contesting. It has done that, I think, in local government elections and in the Sasolburg area, where it has contested, and it has been successful in winning some seats, and has really changed the local dynamics on that front. It will be a totally different game if the ANC actually is facing the SACP at a national government level. SACP has got a big burden on his shoulders to show that it is able to rise above the worst side of ANC politics. There is a continuous intellectual challenge to ideological challenge to show that it has got an alternative to the ANC. So far, the SACP has almost always, at national and provincial level, always stepped back and fallen in line with the coalition again. But we know that it is an important space for the SACP to contest, to show that it does have an identity of its own, and perhaps in the end still fall in line again. But it's also possible that it may not.
Yeah, and let's see how it goes, especially because next year is a big year. Of course, the elections are coming up. Prof, always a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. That is Professor Susan Booysen, Mapungubwe Institute for Strategic Reflection, Director of Research.